Well, new questions today about whether union workers should have a say on the political causes their union money dues go to. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill looking into the issue and into whether unions are really complying with the laws on this, hearing testimony from the very people who pay those dues. Chief National Correspondent Jim Angle, live in Washington with more. Hey, Jim.
Hello, Megan. Well, the issue is pretty simple, really, whether workers should have union dues automatically subtracted from their salaries, whether they like it or not, and voluntary or not, how much power workers have to keep the unions from spending their money on political campaigns they don't agree with.
I feel like a prisoner to the union and its causes when I find that my union dues are going toward political purposes of which I greatly oppose.
My union was using my union dues to push a political agenda that I oppose.
Do workers in unionized organizations have a right to know more than they currently know about when it's being taken, what it's being used for, and whether, in fact, it has to be taken from them?
Now, the states regulate part of that. In 27 of them, unions can automatically subtract money from workers' paychecks, whether they join the union or not. 23 states are what are called right to work, have what are called right to work laws that prevent that. But the Supreme Court has ruled that workers who have money taken from their checks also have the right to keep the union from spending it on anything other than collective bargaining, such as political campaigns. Democrats want to focus on corporate spending, but also agree on union rights.
Unions may not force their members to pay for political activities they disagree with. Unions are already subject to extensive administrative procedures and reporting requirements to ensure they comply with these laws.
But one UAW member says political spending happens anyway.
Up to 40% or more of union workers actually vote for Republican. That means almost 6 million union workers in the United States alone feel harassed and persecuted because of the political activities of their union officials.
Now, Megan, one study showed that in 2010 alone, unions spent $1.1 billion on political campaigns and lobbying activities. The three largest spenders were unions representing government workers and service workers. Megan?
Jangle, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, for more now on union workers' dues going toward political contributions against their will, we are joined by Christopher Hahn, a former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer, and Chris Plante, radio host with The Chris Plante Show. Okay, guys, so this is, the law is pretty clear on this. The Supreme Court has spoken to this issue many times, and it seems clear that union workers are supposed to have the option to opt out. To make sure their dues don't go towards political causes with which they disagree. But there is a real question, that's what Congress and ICE are looking into, about whether the unions are complying with the law and whether as a practical effect the union workers really can take advantage of it or whether there's a little strong-arming going on. Chris Plante, what say you?
Well, obviously, if there are laws in place, they're not being enforced. They haven't been, nobody's paid any attention to them. They've been completely ignored. As Jim just reported, $1.1 billion. And every study shows that the union dollars go at least 95% to Democrats, and the rest go to rhinos who are, in the pockets of the unions. This is an auto-corrupt process. Now, imagine the CEOs of GM, Ford, and Chrysler extracting money against the will of employees and setting up a political action committee that just funded Republicans. Liberals would be going berserk. They'd be going crazy. Yet hundreds of millions of dollars in every election cycle come from unions, and in particular public sector unions, and these public sector employees fund the Democrats' re-election campaigns and then sit across the table from them to negotiate their next contract. I mean, where do you think these golden health care plans come from and all this? It's utterly corrupt.
Christopher
it's fully
would clearly
corrupt.
like to jump in. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, listen. The $1.1 billion you're talking about is PAC money that is spent that employees voluntarily give to so that they can be so their rights can be protected by electing people who are going to stand up for labor, to stand up for people who work for wages, whether they're in a union or not. And I got to tell you something, Chris. This is just more regulation from an oppressive Republican government that doesn't want to let business, have to have any regulations. But when it comes to the working men and women of this country who might oppose them politically, you know what? You better dot your I's, cross your T's, and hire a couple lawyers to get your regulations in order. But that said, Chris, I do enjoy the General Zod collection of that you chose today. I think it's a lovely outlook for you.
Hey, that's not nice. Don't get personal. All right, wait.
Kneel before Zod.
I'm not getting personal. I said it was nice. I think it looks good.
You didn't mean it. No, audible laughs were heard in the studio.
I did mean it.
Okay, listen. Christopher, you raise an interesting point, but I want to ask you whether this is an example of government overreach and super regulation, as you say, or whether it's an attempt to protect union members who really don't want to have their money messed with politically and for causes they don't like this guy back in 2010.
I'm willing to have the money put aside into an organization or charity that we both can agree on, and that's where some of my union dues is being filtered to, but not to these other outfits. But when my union won't even return my phone messages and they keep avoiding the question because it's just too touchy of a subject, I mean, they don't leave me much of a choice.
Your thoughts, Christopher?
You know, after what's happened in Wisconsin, any union member who thinks that the Republican Party stands for them has got a serious problem that, you know, their $5 a month in union dues is not going to help them solve.
So he should just shut up and like it. He should shut up and enjoy the fact that his dollars are supporting the Democrats.
I think, you know, he's got an opportunity. Well, Megyn, he's got an opportunity to vote the union leadership out if he doesn't believe they stand for him.
But Chris
Chris
Plant, isn't the law, Chris Plant, as I understand the law, hold on. As I understand, Chris Plant, the law is he actually has a right to do more than that. He has a right to object to his money being used to support a political candidate he doesn't want to support. And ICE is asking whether the unions are complying with that law.
Well, the whole thing, I mean, obviously the law has been ignored for years, and it's about time Congress started taking this up. This is classic. This is a classic demonstration of liberal hypocrisy as they rail on against the Citizens United decision, allowing corporations to put money into politics. Here we've got a situation where corrupt union bosses with Democrats in their pockets working for them extract money against the will of employees to put them toward political causes that they don't agree with. Now, in this case, we know who the money's coming from. It's just that they don't want to fund what they're funding, which is more outrageous, honestly, and the hypocrisy is glaring. You complain about money in politics, and look at this. This is the most corrupt system.
You know, it's funny, General. I've been having this conversation all week about people who work for Catholic universities and hospitals. Yeah. And people say, you know what, if you don't like the policy of the hospital, you could go work somewhere else. I think people who work in labor unions, the vast majority of them, recognize that the labor union is fighting in their best interest. And I think they are very greatly... their support outweighs the people, the 1 or 2% of union members who don't want the union working in this capacity. 40%. And they have an avenue to get their money back for that, and they should. No, it's not 40%.
So they should get refunds.
You know, that statistic that 40% of labor people are voting Republican, 40% of labor union people no longer vote Republican. That might have been the case before 2010. It is no longer the case in America. So let's be clear. Union workers overwhelmingly support the Democratic Party because if they don't, Chris, they will no longer exist because Republicans don't want unions to exist.
I will tell you this.
Darrell Icah's intention is to eliminate unions.
I will tell you this. According to the statistics that our Brain Room gave me, 69% of union workers think that union leaders should stop spending union dues on politics, and 66% believe it's unreasonable that spending can occur without their consent. The law, I can tell you, is it's all over the place on this. I mean, we had a case go up in 2007 to the Supreme Court. There's a case before the Supreme Court now. So anyway, we'll continue to follow it. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Megyn, just imagine any other organization or company extracting money against their will from the paychecks of employees and dedicating them to political causes. The left would be going guano.
Guano. Guano says the general. Oh, now I'm doing it. All right, guys, I got to go. Thank you both. See you, Chris Squared. Well, it is a legal fight you're going to hear more about in the coming months since both sides say entire elections hang in the balance.